Okay, hey everyone, it's Wally Dellenbach, and this is hopefully a quick how-to video. I always get in the habit of talking too much. On TAMA bass drum pedals, specifically on this Iron Cobra double bass pedal. Now I bought this at a really good price. I had to jump on it. Um, I'm starting to like. I've used the pre-Iron Cobra pedal, the double bass pedal, since it came out in the '90s, and it's a double bass pedal. This is the slave. I went ahead and turned this into a single bass drum pedal. So when I get to going out and playing metal and things like that in bands, I'll use the double bass pedal. But anyway, I like these pedals so much that they're worth. If you come across one at a really good price, they're worth restoring. So this is kind of a quick how-to. If you go ahead and buy a Iron Cobra double bass drum pedal, it was a little bit tricky taking apart. It was the first time I did it, and so anyway, I tore the pedal apart. There was a lot of play in the footboard. There's some, I don't want to call these washers, just kind of like a graphite type of, it's not nylon, but it's just a little bit of some kind of fibrous material that they use as a washer, but there was still too much play in it. This was the bolt that goes through the heel and the footboard, and this heel bolt. And this isn't, I don't think it's Tama's most current pedal. I'm sure there's some age on this, but there's a lot of play in this, and we'll get that rectified. I'll find, and there's some bushings down on this footboard. They'll come out, and it's a larger diameter. It gives your footboard a lot of play. This is kind of like a pre-Iron Cobra pedal, and it has washers or bushings down in it. And you can see it kind of jiggles a little bit, but we'll take care of that. I'll go to the hardware store and we'll get some nylon bushings and put in there, and we'll fix this thing right up. So anyway, I'm on the tail end of the restoration. This footboard plate, I went ahead, I took it apart, I sandblasted it and painted it Rust-Oleum red. And when I got the main assembly apart of the pedal itself, the aluminum cast housing and all the springs and everything, I went ahead and I used Rust-Oleum flat black. Now, one of the cool things about it is once you paint that, you'll see the Iron Cobra moniker right there. What you can do is take like an orbital sander and just run an orbital sander on the top of that text, the lettering and the casting, and you'll sand it down to the aluminum finish. So anyway, let's get down to it. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna let's clean my area up. I don't want to get. I'm going to put a second coat of red on that. That's just the first coat. So what I'll do to get this thing going, I'm going to pop these springs off. There's some bearings right here, and these are all metric. All the screws. There's some set screws on it. I think this is called a hex head cap screw. And on this lever assembly that mounts to your bass drum is, I think it's called a hex head machine screw. Maybe it's been a while since I looked at my machinist handbook. So anyway, let's get down to it. The screws on here, of course, it's all metric. It's a 4mm. There are two set screws up here. These are the 6mm, and then there's some 8mm down here on the base of the footboard. So let's see. Let's go ahead and take this guy apart. So what you'll need are some metric Allen wrenches. It's really pretty simple once you get going. The only problem that I came across when I started taking this apart was the fact that there was some Loctite on this bushing right here. Of course, these bass drum pieces right here, bass drum beater assemblies, have bushings up underneath them that help you adjust the angle of your beater. I don't know these parts by name, so I'm not that familiar. I don't even know what the part number of this Iron Cobra is, what it is. Okay, so basically I've loosened these up, and let's go ahead and I will loosen the set screws here. There's one set screw on this. This is a double chain drive. And there's two set screws on this. Now, what's important is when you start putting this back together, there's like a dial indicator setting that's cast into this this bushing right here. Can you guys see that? Okay, so the screws are loosened up. And of course it's on a hexagon type of a drive. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to loosen up these 4mm set screws. Okay, now within these housings right here, there's some spacers. So here comes a spacer, it's going to fall out. There's the spacer. There's a spacer on this side. And inside of here is some ball bearings, or not ball bearings, bearings. And let's see here. Now it's as far as, let's make sure this is kind of loose. Now when I first took this apart initially, I don't want to be redundant, they used like Loctite in these, and what the Loctite did was seep down onto the hexagon shaft, and it was really hard kind of breaking it free. So if that happens, you want to be careful not to really pry against this aluminum housing. Just, you don't want to stress the aluminum and crack it, or then you're going to be in the market for a new housing or pedal for parts. Okay, now under this guy right here, there's like a cup housing, and inside of this cup housing, there's 2 bearings, and there's a spacer as well. And so it's like a 2-part shaft system. So this shaft right here is one of the parts from here to here, and then this shaft right here is a second part. Inside of this, once again, there's a bearing, and then there's a spacer, and then there's another bearing. Okay, so this should pull apart. So let's give it a whirl. When I put it together, so here's one of the bearings. Now this is kind of important too when you take this apart. The assembly is a spacer, then it's the bearing, and then there's a washer. Okay, so bearing, or a spacer, bearing, washer. That's how it goes together. Same on this side. All right, let's try to get this thing taken apart. I'm going to go ahead. When I got this thing, the chain was really rusty. I'm going to go ahead and take the chain off. So there's the chain. We'll leave it like that. So what I did with the rusty chain is I put it on a wire wheel, and then I soaked it in a little bit of oil. I think I'm going to have to get some brake cleaner maybe and clean this off a little bit. So there's two Phillips screws right there that hold this thing on. You can go ahead and remove these and soak your chain in whatever you want to do to clean it. And anyway, let's get back to this. So let's pull this. I think what I did when I took this thing apart, this isn't going to slide anymore, so what I got to do is slide out this longer shaft right here. And let's see what I did, how I did this is, I might have to take this off. I don't want to get in the way of the camera angle. Okay, so I'm going to drop this assembly, and we'll take this part off like that. We'll go ahead and pull this shaft out. Let's see. I might have to pull these parts. We'll go ahead and drop this one, I guess. It takes a little bit of finagling. There was my bearing that fell out of the other side. So there it is. Now, and then here's like this cup housing that's on your slave side. So there's your bearing, spacer, and bearing. There's nothing else down in there. Okay? So if you guys are in the kick of taking one of these apart and doing a restoration on it, here's kind of a how-to, okay? So that's getting it apart. So, like I might have mentioned earlier, what I did is I just kind of braided this with a wire wheel to give it some tooth, make sure all the oil was off of it. I painted it with Rust-Oleum black. The letters here, the Iron Cobra, they're painted over. What I'm going to do is take like an orbital sander and sand over the top of those, and you'll get this kind of aluminum finish on the lettering. So, and then what I did is this plate for the footboard, I painted it red. Like I said, or I might have said, I drop my drum key sometimes and it falls down in here, and I'm never able to see it. So I hope the red will kind of help bring it out a little bit. If anything ever like that happens. So yeah, there we go. There was a little bit of play in the footboard, and I'm going to get some nylon bushings. We'll take care of that, and this will be a kick-ass pedal once it's all finished. So I hope this video was helpful. Write any comments in the comment section. And I don't know if one exists on Facebook, but might as well start a Facebook group on TAMA Iron Cobra bass pedal restoration or something to that effect. Anyway, the cool thing about the TAMA brand is that a lot of the parts, you'll see I've got a bunch of different parts up here, or different style of bass drum pedals. A lot of these parts are interchangeable, and that's what's pretty cool about their brand. So if you ever see on eBay or any place like that, TAMA bass pedal for parts, buy it, because you never know what you're going to run across. I'm kind of a Speed King player, Ludwig Speed King player at heart, but to me that pedal's kind of antiquated because there's just so much better technology out there right now. So anyway, everybody have a good afternoon or good evening, whatever the case may be, and thanks for watching the video. Bye.